following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Hello, good afternoon, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Friday, January 28th, 2010, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome for our next 60 minutes of news, talk, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. We're coming to you from Rolla J Studios here in beautiful Potland, Oregon. We're happy to have you here, and stay tuned for the second hour, Toker Talk Radio, here live on NORML Show Live. And joining us here in studio as well is the maestro, Ganja John.
What's up, Russ?
Oh, man, we made it to Friday.
We did.
This is my last weekend as a 42-year-old.
Oh, no.
I don't know if that's significant in any sort of way.
It is the answer to the secret of life.
I know. It's my last year of my Douglas Adams birthday. What can I say? Also joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Astoria, Oregon is the lovely and talented Cannabis Carrie.
Or not.
Or not? Okay, we'll work on getting Carrie on the line here. We've got something going on. Maybe she can hear us. We can't hear her. Anyway, on today's show, we have got some great stuff coming up on our Rockin' Friday Daily Toker Tunes. Herb Thrasher's going to join us with a song from Saviors called Cavern of Mind. And then at 1:30, we've got some government at work for you with Representative John G. Edwards from the state of Rhode Island. He's a sponsor of HB 5031 that's headed to the Judiciary Committee for decriminalization of up to an ounce of marijuana in the state of Rhode Island. And then at 1:45, we've got our Cultivators Corner on the fourth Friday of every month. We speak with Danny Danko from High Times Magazine, the senior cultivation editor. He'll be answering your live call-in and chat questions in our Cultivators Corner, so stay tuned for that. And we will come back with Cannabis Carrie in our hemp headlines right after this first break. You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation. Stay tuned. It's going to be a good one.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
High in the Rockies. For the first time ever, High Times is hosting the Medical Cannabis Cup in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup. There'll be cultivation seminars with High Times editors Danny Danko and Nico Escondido, plus other experts and cannabis celebrities. Attend activism seminars with leaders of the medical marijuana movement, including advice on how to start your own canna business. Meet industry leaders in medical cultivation, hydroponics, smokable glassware, hemp products, dispensary supply, cannabis accessories, and more. Plus, Medical Cannabis Cups will be awarded to the best indica, sativas, concentrates, and edibles entered by legally operating medical marijuana dispensaries and growing collectives. And don't forget Saturday night when the Medical Cannabis Cup will host the extravaganza with surprise musical guests. The High Times Medical Cannabis Cup, April 2nd and 3rd, 2011 at Exto in Denver, Colorado. Visit medcancup.com for details. Be part of the growing cannabis industry. Come to the High Times Medical Cannabis Cup in Denver.
In terms of legalization of drugs, I think that the battle, the war on drugs has been a utter failure. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. And I think that we need to rethink and criminalize our marijuana laws. Criminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. Criminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. Criminalize our marijuana laws. The war on drugs has been a utter failure. Criminalize our marijuana laws.
NORML Show Live, where we don't change our position on decriminalization in an election year. Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
Some breaking news. A story we've been following for the last year, the Chris Barkowitz story. The Denver, Colorado medical marijuana grower was sentenced today to 5 years in a federal prison that will be followed by 8 years of supervised probation. According to the Denver Post, the sentencing came after his plea bargain was accepted by a judge. He pleaded guilty to 3 federal marijuana cultivation charges in October. Part of his sentence also includes mandatory drug and mental health programs during and after his incarceration. Last February, federal drug agents raided his home and seized more than 100 marijuana plants. His troubles began when a Denver TV station promoted a story where they interviewed him. Barkowitz took them on a tour of his basement garden and was taped telling the reporter how much money he was going to make under Colorado's medical marijuana rules. Federal agents raided his home shortly after the interview was aired. Barkowitz maintains that he was a medical marijuana caregiver to several patients and that he sold the rest to legal dispensaries. DEA agents say they targeted Barkowitz because he was growing more plants than Colorado law allowed because of his prior state-level drug convictions and because his house was only 2 blocks from a school. He lost his bid to use a medical defense in his federal court case because all marijuana cultivation is illegal under federal law. Federal District Court Judge Philip Brimmer said in his sentencing this morning that the case was not an example of the federal government oppressively interfering with the state law because Barkowitz had miserably failed to follow Colorado law with the number of plants that he had and because he had never met any of the patients he was growing for. It was because of his prior conviction of a drug crime that Barkowitz ultimately decided he must take a plea deal. With a previous drug conviction, he could have faced a life term if the case had gone to trial, or between 10 and 40 years in prison. According to his lawyer, Joseph St. Veltri, it was the best he could have hoped for under the circumstances. Speaking after the sentencing today, St. Veltri said that, quote, hundreds of plants are being cultivated within a mile radius of this building as we speak, and they will continue to be cultivated because the people of Colorado want that to happen, unquote. Barkowitz was immediately handcuffed and led out by U.S. Marshals after several of Barkowitz's supporters fought back tears. There were about a dozen protesters outside of the courthouse this morning during his sentencing.
Wow, it's a shame to hear this. Did you say it was 13 years, Carrie?
No, it was a plea bargain for 5 years. It will be followed by 8 years of supervised provision.
Right.
which we can assume if the laws don't change in the next 5 years, that he will be drug tested regularly during that 8 years.
Right. So 13 years of, not being sentenced to 13 years of not being a cannabis consumer, 5 years in the prison. Yeah. This is such a tough case to talk about. There's the angle of talking about, it's not the best idea to be bragging about the large size of your grow, especially if you may have a previous conviction in your past. I mean, there's an object lesson for people out there who are cultivators. Loose lips cause rips, and maybe keep it quiet is the best practice here. But then there's also the angle here of the news station, the broadcasting here, and them just turning over the information for Bartkowitz to the feds, without even a fight, just rolled right over and gave that to them. And then the angle about the federal charges, being in federal court, not being able to argue the medical defense, whether or not that would have helped him, whether or not he was complying with Colorado law, but still the fact that you can't even offer into the federal record that what you were doing you believed to be legal, or that you were operating under a constitutional guideline in that state. 9.26% of the people of the state of Colorado will use cannabis this month. Almost 9.26%. To think that those people will feel safer now that Chris Bartkowitz is behind bars in a federal prison is ludicrous to me. That anybody should feel safer, that should feel better in this country, that we're locking up people for gardening is insane.
And I was talking to John Doe at John Doe Radio this morning, and we were having a good time, having a really good morning, and then he heard about this, and it just tore him up. So you guys got to remember, this doesn't just affect Chris. It affects all his friends, too. They get 5 years to not see him, and this is... It's really awful. Yeah, this is such a shame, and we will have the information up for Chris Bartkowitz. I was just looking for some graphics here that we have, and I'll pull these up later up on the show that you can write to Chris Bartkowitz, and that's something to keep in touch with the outside world is so helpful. We'll bring that up later up on the show.
A two-day hearing on Colorado State new proposed rules for the medical cannabis industry is being held today and yesterday by the State Revenue Department. That department will oversee the thousands of medical marijuana-related businesses that have opened in the last few years. The most heated debate is over the requirements that the transactions in a dispensary must be videotaped, that all purchases are to be documented, and personal information needs to be recorded for many of the state's 115,000 medical marijuana patients. Advocates say the potential for patients' privacy to be threatened will cause many of the state's medical marijuana patients to opt out of the program and return to buying marijuana on the street. State officials say that the details of purchases would be kept in a secure online database. But detractors of the new proposal said that you only have to look at WikiLeaks disclosures to find evidence that even the most guarded information is in danger of becoming public. 30 advocates spoke during a public comment section of the hearing yesterday. Dispensary owners who were part of the advisory committee to craft the new rules all expressed concern over many of the rules that made it into the final draft. Greg Godfogel, a marijuana-infused products maker who was on the advisory committee, said that he worried about the 70-30 rule that requires dispensaries to grow 70% of the marijuana sold in their stores. He said that it just wasn't defined well enough to regulate. But he did say, quote, "I believe that this work has been historic, effective, and leaves a lot more work to be done." Rob Corey, a marijuana advocate and defense attorney, said that a number of the rules were quite positive. He hopes that if the regulations go into place, the federal government bully will leave Colorado alone, letting them regulate themselves. But he also expressed concern over patient privacy issues. Not all advocates saw anything positive in the new regulations. Evan Anderson, a dispensary owner, said, quote, "These rules represent the fear and ignorance that led to the prohibition of this plant," unquote. He also said that the new rules would make it more difficult to buy medical marijuana in a licensed dispensary than to buy pseudoephedrine, the main ingredient in methamphetamine, at a pharmacy. Other owners of dispensaries are attending the hearings say they want to follow the rules, but they want to be treated fairly, and the rules need to stop changing. The hearing is scheduled to continue throughout today at the Jefferson County Justice Center in Golden, Colorado.
Wow. This issue of patient privacy is one that I think about a lot. I read the bills that come up time and time again in the various legislatures, and I always get a chill when I see things about having patient cards that would have their name and their address and their phone and where they're growing. You know, it's just like you lose your wallet, and the next thing you know, there's criminals at your door trying to rip off all your grow equipment. Also, these databases that keeping all this data online, and it can be so easily lost. We saw the case of the dispensary leaving their stuff outside by the dumpster. You know, the more that we collect on these people, the more difficult it becomes to manage these programs and to keep people's personal information private. It again just illustrates why we need to go forward and end marijuana prohibition altogether, so that we can just have everybody maintaining their privacy and not try to keep track of who's a criminal and who's a patient. That's the fear these patients have about wanting to join a registry, is having their name on a hit list, either for law enforcement or for people that might want to rip them off. Let's just legalize so that the patients can use their medicine in peace and the rest of us can keep our privacy and civil rights.
And more than 31 years after skipping out on a federal trial, the U.S. Marshal Service nabbed their man on Thursday. 62-year-old Mark Stevens Phillips was arrested at his seniors community apartment in Miami for his part in the Black Tuna Gang marijuana smuggling ring. Authorities estimate that the Black Tuna Gang was responsible for smuggling more than 500 tons of marijuana into the U.S. in the mid-1970s. In May of 1979, the trial was the largest marijuana importation prosecution in history, and Phillips, along with 13 others, were charged, including frequent NSL guest and author Robert Platshorn. The group moved marijuana from Colombia to the U.S. through the mid-1970s. The U.S. Marshal Cold Case Fugitive Squad had tracked Phillips through Chile, then Germany, and then it was a cold trail, but it finally led them to the senior apartment community in Florida. They were able to find him when he obtained a Florida driver's license in his real name. Back in 1979, he fled a trial for violating the racketeering influence and corrupt organization statute. He was also charged with engaging in a criminal enterprise and charged with possession with intent to sell marijuana. Phillips is now facing sentencing for a racketeering conviction and adjudication of fugitive charges. The U.S. Marshals say that Phillips was the corporate director for a Fort Lauderdale yacht company and functioned as a broker to buy vessels that were then refitted to accommodate cargo areas for marijuana. But now his lifestyle is more like that of other retired seniors living in the Sunshine State. He has been living on the down low in a West Palm Beach senior retirement community. He told the U.S. Magistrate Edwin Torres shortly after his apprehension that he owns no property, he has about $600 in a bank account, and he lives on $667 a month that he receives in Social Security. According to the U.S. Marshal Service news release, Phillips was sleeping when the deputies went to his apartment on Monday. He told that the judge he was told that the judge wanted to see him, and he responded with, quote, "The judge wants to see me from 30 years ago?" Mark Phillips is set to appear before U.S. District Judge James King, the same judge he ran away from 30 years ago. It is not known exactly how much prison time he will receive.
Oh my God, this is just, it's almost like listening, the Nazi hunters. Remember when the Nazi hunters, we tracked them down for 35 years. They finally were brought to justice. Come on, man. This guy was involved with marijuana, and after 30 years, he's living in a senior retirement community, and you think that, we need to be safer or he needs to pay, retribution here. Let's get the real scoop here. Ganja John has some information for us.
Yeah, I talked to Bobby this morning, and I would say that him being involved in marijuana smuggling is probably a stretch. Mark Phillips. He wrote me this note. Mark Phillips was barely a bit player, let alone a kingpin. We bought a few boats from him and his family boatyard. He fished with our fishing teams a few times, but he never sold so much as a seed of pot, and you can see all this in the Black Tuna Diaries. He's a nice guy, and now is going to spend the rest of his life in jail. And I think I went to prison for all of us.
Yeah, really.
And Bobby, honestly, he got in a car wreck yesterday. So if you want to hear the full story, you can check out his book.
Yeah, Robert Platshorn, the Black Tuna, big fan of the show, friend of the show, and we'll have him on next week to give more details about this story and the book. The upcoming new movie, too, we'll be looking forward to. Square Groupers is the story, the film adaptation of his book, The Black Tuna Diaries, and that should be coming out pretty soon. So, Robert
by Southwest in Austin.
That's right, South by Southwest in Austin. And when is that? Do you know the dates?
March 20th.
March 20th. So they'll be premiering that movie down there in Austin. We'll have Robert Platshorn and the Black Tuna on our show to discuss it. Coming up next, we'll be getting into your Daily Toker tunes with Herb Thrasher. He'll be calling in. We've got a tune called Saviors with Cavern of Mine. And if I know Herb Thrasher, it's going to be rocking for the Friday. And then at 1:30, we go into Government at Work. We'll speak with Representative John G. Edwards from Rhode Island, sponsor of House Bill 5031 to decriminalize in Rhode Island. And then we end up the show with our own Danny Danko from High Times Magazine, the senior cultivation editor, answering your live questions in our Cultivators Corner. So stay tuned. It's coming up next.
In the meantime, me and Russ are going to take a break.
It's break time, and I am dying for some pot. Off to the dark parking lot. We'll see you later.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
When I was in England, I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it. And didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
I think you'd probably be a lot cooler if you had, Mr. President.
Said, hey, do you have a joint, kids? Sure would be a lot cooler if you did. Line, don't hide it. Line, don't hide it. Oh, line, don't hide it. Line, don't hide it. Just line, don't hide it. Fire up right now.
NORML Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of NORML Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at norml.org.
It's time for your Daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420-friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Our PodSafe music is donated by freedom-loving musicians who support our goal of ending adult marijuana prohibition. Today we take you into the weekend with Rockin' Friday, our segment featuring the best rock, metal, punk, and jam band music, brought to you by Herb Thrasher at herbthrasher.com. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now, here's some great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes. All right, Tokers, flash your horns and bang your head. Herb Thrasher's in the house. What's up, Herb?
Not much, man. What's going on today? Yeah, we're going to rock today. How's everyone doing in the house?
We're looking forward to the weekend. It's my last weekend before my birthday on Monday.
Yeah, I have a birthday right after you, day after. We always celebrate together. We're going to have to figure something else out to do this time.
I think there will be bongs involved.
Yeah, I've got an impression that it's going to be something kind of fun like that, too, and a little bit of rock and roll, too, huh?
Right on. What are we going to do for that, huh?
All right, so, yeah, we're going to rock hard today, guys, so go ahead and turn it up now and get ready. So, Saviors is an American stoner metal thrash band. The band was formed in 2004 in Oakland. I wonder if they know Richard Lee. And have released 3 albums and have 5 EPs, and we have played in shows in 21 countries on Earth. Saviors are influenced by many types of metal, from Poto to new wave of British heavy metal to black and lots in between. So there's not a lot of information on these guys, but they're out there rocking. And on their blog, they have a blog site instead of really a website. The blog will become our primary outlet of information on the internet as we try to withdraw from MySpace and civilization in general. So you can contact them at their blog spot, killforsaviorsblogspot.com. They do have a MySpace page, Saviors666. And besides that, you guys are just going to have to catch them on the road. But I totally recommend looking them up, man. They just freaking rock, and they're going to tear it up today for you. Yellow Wano, you got your ears up? This one's for you. Horns up.
Herb, by the way, I got my Motorhead tickets, so we're raring to go.
You got your Motorhead tickets?
Yeah.
I'll see you there, dude. We're going to rock hard on that one. Good for you, dude.
All right, horns up, everybody. Saviors with Cavern of Mind.
song for your iPod? Check out the Daily Toker Tunes at the Stash blog by surfing to stash.normal.org and choosing Media, and then Toker Tunes from the main menu.
Starfish Designs, makers of the original Gandalf.
I'm Radical Russ, and when I want to relax, I always have my 17-inch long original Gandalf from Starfish Designs nearby. The hand-blown borosilicate glass is strong and easy to clean, and the design is sleek and sophisticated. Starfish Designs are available from Bend, Oregon at a glass retailer near you. For locations, call 541-788-GLASS. That's 541-788-4527.
Hi, I'm Keith Straub, the founder of NORML. In all the years since 1970 that I've been fighting marijuana prohibition, I've learned that drug warriors love to confuse the public with statistics. Lately, they've claimed that there are more teens enrolled in drug treatment for marijuana than ever before. It's a statement that, while true, is intentionally misleading. What they don't tell you is that marijuana arrests have skyrocketed to over 800,000 arrests per year. They also don't tell you that we've gone from a few dozen drug courts in the 1990s to over 2,500 drug courts today. The kicker is that those drug courts sentence teens routinely to drug treatment for marijuana whether they need drug treatment or not. So they arrest more people for pot, require them to enter drug treatment, then claim the higher treatment numbers justify more pot arrests. It's an absurd proposition, but no more absurd than banning a plant. Learn the facts about pot. Visit NORML.org today.
Also by Barry McCaffrey, General Barry McCaffrey, I should say, retired general, military analyst at NBC, and most importantly for this conversation, former National Drug Policy Director, very familiar with this conversation.
NORML Show Live, where the truth about marijuana gets more than a minute to speak.
General, I'm going to begin with you.
NORML stands for Reforming America's Prohibitionist Marijuana Laws, and that cannot happen without directly engaging our government and elected officials. Local NORML chapters and other affiliated activists relentlessly lobby our lawmakers for a change we can believe in and report on their strategies and progress in this segment we call Our Government at Work.
Welcome back, everyone, and we're honored to be joined by Representative John G. Edwards from the Rhode Island Legislature. Representative, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
We got you here, of course, because of House Bill 5031 that's before the Judiciary Committee, and I was hoping you could tell our listeners a little bit about what that bill would do for Rhode Islanders.
It's actually a very simple bill. What it will do is it will decriminalize marijuana. It'll take away the criminal stigma for possession of marijuana under 1 ounce and add a civil penalty of $150 per occurrence in place of the criminal penalty.
Okay. Like many states have, we now have 13 states in the United States with something similar as far as decriminalization, the most recent of which being Massachusetts. And we found in Massachusetts, since they've passed that decriminalization, some local townships have gotten around it by passing other sorts of penalties for consumption or possession. Does this bill address that in any way, whether or not the cities or within Rhode Island could come up with different penalties compared to this state legislation?
No, it just takes away the criminal penalty from civil possession. What it does do is it gives the cities or towns that make the arrest, or not the arrest, but make the catch, they actually get to keep the money.
Okay. So that would take care of that situation. So, Representative, what led you to want to introduce this bill? What's happening in Rhode Island that made you find the need for decriminalization?
Well, we have, I did the first census. They had 44 prisoners in the Rhode Island ACI who had been sent there for civil possession. Now, granted, most of them had been put there because they had parole violation, but their sentence was for simple possession. That cost the taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island some $44,000 a year per inmate. I thought that was just incredible.
Sounds like the sensible thing to do is to get rid of that cost to the state and allow the state to at least, in this situation there, fining people for the 1 ounce. They would bring in some revenue to cover the cost of ticketing and enforcement. So seems like a sensible step in the right direction. Now, Representative Edwards, as I consulted the federal government statistics, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, we find that in monthly consumption of cannabis, Rhode Island leads the nation with 10.9% of its citizens consuming cannabis at least once in the prior month. Does that overwhelming support or use amongst the citizens make it easier for you to propose these kinds of bills in the legislature?
Well, I haven't had a lot of support, I can tell you.
Oh, okay.
Very, very, very few people have called me to say that they're against it, and I've actually had more people call me to tell me they say that they were actually in favor of this legislation.
That's good news. How about within the legislature itself, though? Do you have co-sponsors, people that are willing to put their names in on this bill?
Yes, I do. Out of 75 representatives, I have 40 who co-signed the bill.
Wow.
So I think that's pretty good support.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So, of course, in Rhode Island, you've got two bodies to go through. Is there a companion legislation for this been proposed yet in the Senate?
Yes, there is. Senator Josh Miller from Warwick has a similar bill. His is a little more wordy. Mine, if you actually take a look at it, is actually one paragraph. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
His bill is 3 or 4 pages.
Has it gotten a number yet, or is it has yet to be assigned?
No, he has not submitted it yet this year.
Oh, okay.
He will be.
Okay, so it sounds like if you've got 40 co-sponsors out of an assembly of 75, that you've got good chances of getting it through if it comes to a full vote. But right now you're in front of the Judiciary Committee. How do your chances look there?
Well, actually, I was smart enough about it. I went out and made sure I had our new chairwoman was a co-sponsor. Plus, the majority of the members are also co-sponsors of the bill.
Oh.
So I think if we have a pretty decent hearing in front of the judiciary, I think we should be able to get it out of the committee.
Excellent. And on the Senate side, I don't know if you can speak for Senator Miller, but how does the support look over on that side?
Well, Josh, he's a fairly popular senator. He's been there for a while. This is only my second term. He's been there for a few more. I imagine he will be able to get it through his end. What's going to happen is we're going to have to come up with a compromise between our two bills.
All right, what are some of the differences that you'll have to work out?
Well, his bill takes the money. Half of it goes to the city or town that catches the person with it. The other half goes to drug treatment, and there's a number of different things. It's mostly in the mechanics how the bills work.
Okay. So,
like I said, mine is very, very simple.
But from the consumer's point of view, from our listeners' point of view, would they both be the same with respect to 1 ounce, $150 fine?
Yes.
So really, it's just a matter of you guys working out where that $150 goes.
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
Excellent. So then, it looks good on both fronts there in the House and the Senate. What about the governor? Is this something the governor would be likely to sign?
I have no idea really where the governor is going to be on this particular issue. He asked a lot. He was asked a lot during the campaign, and he said he would have to look at the legislation that came forward to see how he would vote on it.
Okay, so it sounds as if we were going to counsel our listeners in Rhode Island to direct their energies, maybe they should be directed toward the governor and showing their support for this legislation.
I would say that would be a good move for your listeners.
All right, excellent. Well, we're speaking with Representative John G. Edwards from the Rhode Island Assembly and the sponsor of House Bill, one of 40 sponsors for House Bill 5031 before the Judiciary Committee. We're really looking forward to that. Folks, go on to our website at NORML.org. You can get involved, go to the Action Alert Center, and send those letters of support to your elected officials. Get involved. We can change the laws. Representative Edwards, thank you so much for joining us here on NORML Show Live.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, sir. And coming up next, we've got Danny Danko in our Cultivators Corner and your live questions at 971-533-7111. Stay tuned. It's Normal Show Live.
Five of the last 7 people to run for president and the last 3 winners have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House.
Just say no.
No matter what you call it, it's a huge part of popular culture.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
You don't need weed school. You just need a copy of the new book, Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life.
Hey, this is great, man.
Even if you never smoked marijuana.
I never used marijuana. Sorry.
Don't think you smoked marijuana.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two and didn't inhale.
Or you used to smoke marijuana.
I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Pot Culture by former High Times editor Steve Bloom and Shirley Halperin will answer every question you ever had about marijuana culture.
Has that marijuana made it back up here yet?
Check out Pot Culture, the A to Z Guide to Stoner Language and Life at Amazon.com or visit PotCultureBook.com today.
Too bad, man. I just stopped smoking yesterday.
Mary, quite contrary. How does her garden grow? Don't ask me. I'm just the voiceover guy. Ask High Times Senior Cultivation Editor Danny Danko in our Normal Show Live's Cultivators Corner.
Oh boy, the phone lines are already lighting up here as we are joined by Danny Danko out there in New York. Danny, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Rick?
It's going real well, and we got a lot of people that got a lot of questions. Before we get to them, I want to give you a chance to talk about the February 12th growth seminar you're putting on out there in Michigan.
Yeah, we're coming to Michigan. If people want more info, we got information at hightimes.com/growclinic. And actually, I have a special code for normal listeners, which is Danko. If you use the words Danko as your code, you get $70 off the tickets. And that's in Ypsilanti, Michigan, February 12th. And, it's part of an ongoing series of medical marijuana grow clinics that we're putting on around the country in states with medical marijuana laws where people can grow.
Where's the one you're going to be doing in Montana?
Montana is going to be, I think, in May, and we'll have more information on that soon. I think it's Missoula. I'm not 100% sure.
I think I'm going to cover it for the show. I think I might drive out there.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I got family in Missoula, too, so that would be awesome.
All right, excellent. All these growth seminars coming up from High Times, Danny Danko, Nico Escondito. You can get all that information. And, of course, they'll be here on the show telling you all about it. We got to get to the questions, though. A lot of people want to talk to you, Danny. And our first question here asks about if you have any opinions on adding CO2 to a small budding room by putting in one of those commercial white blocks of mycelium called Exhale. It's supposed to kick out the CO2 for 4 to 6 months. Is it worth it?
The one that I've heard of is called CO2 Boost, but I guess it's the same sort of idea. It's using mushroom growth to create CO2. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's actually a lot better than using, CO2 in gas containers or propane containers because, you're burning off, basically essential gases that we need. And so, yeah, I think that the mushroom method is a really good sort of sustainable, easy, and not quite so dangerous and not quite, because it's a little weird to be bringing big 50-pound canisters of gas into your home and stuff. But, these are typically just small buckets and very inconspicuous. So, yeah, I totally support it. I think, after you're done, you can just throw the rest of the spent mushroom compost right into your compost, and that's a wonderful way to add to the mycelium in your compost. So I think it's a win-win. I think the CO2 boost and the exhale are great ways to provide CO2 for small grow spaces, and even for big ones if you double up or triple up.
Right on. All right, we have a question here from David. Wanted to know, how much can it cost to start from scratch a small grow for personal use? Starting from scratch, how much could it cost?
Well, starting from scratch and indoors, your biggest expense should really be the lighting and the ventilation. And beyond that, lighting is typically the biggest. So beyond that, containers, you can reuse, 5-gallon buckets that are $2 or $3. You're going to need some kind of genetics, which would require either living in an area blessed enough to have, clones and seeds available, or ordering them yourself or getting them from a friend. So the costs are going to vary, but just especially starting out, I would focus on the lighting and, the nutrients that you choose to buy to feed the plants with. Those should be the major concerns, and the medium that you grow in. And, as far as buying a fancy, plastic hydroponic system your first time, I wouldn't really recommend that.
Well, ballpark it for us. So are we talking $1,000?
So you could do it. Let's say, you can do it. You can get started very easily for under $1,000. Lighting is typically, anywhere between $100 and $400 or $500 for top of the line, 1,000-watt lights and ballasts, and that's going to be, like I said, the majority of your cost. That should be almost half of what you spend. Everything else is going to be the containers that you choose to grow in, the medium you choose to grow in, the equipment that you have for moving air around and cleaning air, the carbon filtration system. Those are a couple of $100. Everything else is just, random stuff here and there, a couple of buckets, a couple of oscillating fans, and some plant food. And I wouldn't skimp on the plant food either, but, 30, 40 gallons of, $30 or $40 a gallon is nothing when you think of how many times you're going to dilute that and use that on your plants. So,
sure.
I would say, the average person in a small, 4x4 or smaller space can get started for under $1,000. And, nowadays that can be the cost of 2 or 3 ounces. So, you're guaranteed to produce more than that, along the way at some point.
Sure. And our listener Stereotype points out that you can get high-pressure sodium ballast for cheap at police auctions.
That's probably true.
You know what? There's a karmic element to that, though, because you're basically you're feeding the beast when you do that. Because that just encourages them.
Don't encourage them.
Yeah, if you buy from a police auction, be sure to pay in cash so they don't know where you're taking it.
Yeah, really. All right, here's our next question comes here from Free Texas 2012. What is a good homemade fertilizer?
Well, the ultimate homemade fertilizer is compost tea, and aerated compost tea, because you make that from the scraps of food, and you can add all kinds of guanos, and some people add molasses, and some people add, there's 1,000 different ways that you can make it, but what it basically is compost in a bag, steeped in water, the same way you would with tea, but on a much larger scale. And then, oxygenated with air pumps for 24 hours overnight, basically. And then that next day, that can be used as a foliar feed, a soil drench. It basically is just a wonder juice because it strengthens it feeds the plant, but it also strengthens the plant and its abilities to fight off things like powdery mildew and spider mites, because the plant just has you could almost describe it as a invisible barrier around it of healthiness that keeps pests and pestilence away.
Excellent.
So I would say aerated compost tea, and it's cheap. You produce it yourself. You just oxygenate it with a simple aquarium pump, and you're on your way. And it's really hard to overdo also. I mean, you got to dilute it after it's brewed, but as long as it's about it looks like weak iced tea, then you really can't over fertilize with it. It's just a wonderful thing to add for indoors and outdoors.
All right. And let's see. Our next question, by the way, we're speaking with Danny Danko, the senior cultivation editor for High Times Magazine. You can call in if you want to ask your question directly at 971-533-7111. And our next question, how important is pH in your nutrient solution? If you had to, should you err on the side of more alkaline or more acidity?
Well, you're going to want slight acidity, especially with hydroponics. So, typically for hydroponics, they say 5.8 to 6.4 or somewhere in between there, which is slightly on the acidic side. Soil's a little more forgiving, and for soil, I usually recommend, 6.0 to 6.6 or somewhere in there, with 6.2 to 6.5 being optimal. So it is slightly on the acidic side, but yes, pH is very important in both soil and hydro gardens. And you always want to test the water and the solution, and make sure you test the solution after you've added all the nutrients. And then, always have pH up and pH down of some sort on hand to use to adjust that. And with soil gardens, you also want to test the water that's coming out the bottom of the pot, because that could mean that your medium pH is off, and the stuff that you're adding isn't going to be absorbed by the plant.
All right. We have a question from our own Rolla J, who wants to know, after mite infestation, how long can mites live in the room when the plants are gone?
Oh, wow. This is a tough one, but I mean, at least for a month or two, because they just keep reproducing without ever even necessarily needing to eat. It's almost like they go into a hibernation mode. Bed bugs do the same sort of thing. It's incredible how much these things want to continue existing. It's one of the things that you find out when you start growing, is that it's very difficult to really truly rid yourself of a pest problem. Most of the time you're just containing it and keeping it manageable, and constantly fighting back. But like I said, they can go several months without eating and continuously reproducing, so that their future generations can get in there and eat up your plants. So you really want to treat all the wall surfaces, the ceilings, the floor, everything with a nice bleach solution, and really keep an eye out for any kind of bugs after you've gone and put the plants back in there.
Damn superbugs. All right. Let's see. Our next question comes from Blunt Doctor, who says, when producing a sensimilla crop from a single plant, I've heard that using certain chemicals to change the sex of a branch of a female plant to a male plant and allowing it to pollinate itself produces feminized seeds. Is this process reliable, and is it safe on the end product?
This is a question I get a lot. Feminized seeds are very popular, and they are produced by basically shocking a female, introducing male flowers, and using that pollen on the female buds. So that's how it's done. I mean, some people use gibberellic acid. Some people use the stress of messing with the light cycle of the plant and putting it in the dark for a long time. You're basically trying to freak the plant out and make it think it's going to die. Which I don't really truly recommend on a few levels. And then the seeds that you get out of the first cross are typically going to be half female and half hermaphrodite. There's no possibility of any male plants popping up, but you do have that possibility of hermaphroditic plants, which can actually ruin a whole garden, because you can get seeds filling up all the buds of a whole garden and just have to make hash out of that garden or whatever. So, I prefer that people use regular seeds. It's not that difficult to determine the sex of the plant. You just got to assume you're going to get about 50-50 and act accordingly. you know. So I'm not super big on feminine seeds. I realize that there's a market for it and they do need to exist. But if I were to give my highest recommendations, I would say get regular seeds, throw out the best females, get rid of the males, and use those females as mother plants to get cuttings from for your garden. I mean, that's the ultimate way to really know what you're going to get every time you grow.
All right, good advice. All right, this next question comes from KeyDebt46. I love this. I'm on week 4 of a 12-12 cycle, seeing no trikes. What the hell am I growing? This is my first grow with 400-watt HPS. Seeds were from a free bag from Nirvana. What, did they send me hemp?
Well, you know, the thing is, even hemp eventually flowers.
Yeah. Week 4.
It's really strange. How many weeks? Week 4?
He says he says he's on week 4 of the 12-12 cycle.
Right. There are some sativas that you know take up to 16 weeks and stuff to flower and more, and those probably wouldn't show flowers for 3 weeks or so after you flip the switch on and make them 12-12. But I've never really heard of going a full month, and so I would say there may be light leaks, there may be interruptions of the dark cycle of some sort that's keeping the plant in the vegetative stage, because usually by 2 to 3 weeks you're going to see pretty distinct little puff balls and white hair starting to form, and you usually see the signs of plant sexing by a month. So either it's an extreme sativa or he's got issues with interrupting the dark cycle with 12 hours, because it really needs 12 full hours of complete darkness to flower, and even one interruption at the wrong time can trigger the plant back into the vegetative stage.
All right, we're speaking with Danny Danko from High Times Magazine, and we're running up the top of the hour here, Danny. We're going to continue on in hour 2, and if you'd like to join us, we'll keep the lines open. It's completely up to you, Danny, no pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to keep going. As long as people have questions and we can help them out, I'll keep them going. I did want to mention, all these revolutions and street protests and stuff happening in Africa and Egypt and Tunisia and stuff. What these people are showing us is that you really don't have to be that afraid of your government, especially when the government is in the wrong. And I think we could take a lesson from them. Maybe not a religious lesson, but definitely a lesson in standing up for what you know is right. And I'm not saying we need to protest in the streets, but send letters, talk to the governor of Rhode Island, give Obama shit for what he said yesterday and all his waffling, and, just advance the issue. We need to advance this because, I mean, with guys like, Tuna's buddy there going away, and people like Eddie Leff and Mark Emery and Chappelle Corby, there's so many tragedies daily. I mean, I know of all people, but we've got to make it stop, and we've got to do whatever we can, stand up and unite against this tragedy and travesty of the war on pot.
I told you guys I love political Danny. I told you an hour or 2 yesterday.
The only reason, the reason I mention it is because I'm inspired by those people, because they're facing down, men with clubs and,
water cannons.
I don't think our fight is even as hard as theirs if we all stand up. We could list marijuana overnight if enough people just stood up and were counted.
You're right. If young people voted, like the AARP set voted, in those kind of numbers, and considering how many of us are tokers. Absolutely. Hey, we'll be right back here at the top of the hour with more Danny Danko answering your questions in Cultivator's Corner. For those of you listening on the podcast, stop by hour 2 sometime at live.normal.org every weekday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. For Cannabis Gary and Ganja John, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and take care of each other, tokers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!